peeps and creeps, and welcome to Fright Club. I'm Gav, he's Danny.
Hello.
We're the Fright Club NI, and this is another episode of Monday Night Frights. And tonight we're talking about the sequel to one of our favourite films of all time, The Nightmare on Elm Street. This is Freddy's Revenge.
Freddy's Revenge.
Freddy's Revenge, Part 2, or more commonly known to certain people as the gay one.
The gay one.
The gay one, which is, okay, there's some gay bits in this, but it's a bit
look
unfair.
at it that way, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
we will be delving deep into the themes and the subtext of this film. But before we go any further, actually, I wanted to say, if you haven't seen our episode on the original Nightmare on Elm Street, pause this video now, go back on our YouTube, and watch that episode first. I think it's episode 13 of season 1. And then come back and watch this afterwards. So.
Actually, no, they don't go that way. They're going to go that way.
They're going to go that way.
Click on the channel, and they're going to hit subscribe, and they're going to go to season 1.
You're going to hit that bell.
Nightmare on Elm Street 1. Hit that bell icon.
Hit that bell icon. You're going to hit subscribe, and you're going to share it everywhere, and then you're going to tell your friends about us, and then they're all going to subscribe as well, and they're all going to hit that bell.
Hit the bell. Hit the bell. Hit subscribe. Watch all the videos.
Follow Twitter, follow Instagram, check the website out.
Precisely.
Yeah, so obviously this was released the year after the original Nightmare on Elm Street, which is my favourite horror film of all time. As you'll find out in that first episode, if you go back and watch it.
You'll hear us just basically gushing about the whole thing, because we love it.
Gushing about Robert Englund, who, come on, let's,
Did we mention?
Did we mention we met him?
The last time we met him? We happened to meet him at the same convention.
Funny you should.
Your souvenir.
Funny you should bring that up there, Donny, but...
Oh,
there he is.
There we are.
That's me meeting Robert Englund. That's free, and then that's your autograph.
And that's my Robert Englund autograph with "Where's the bourbon, bitch?"
Classic scene from Dream Warriors.
Of course. I didn't get a photo with him though. I was on my own and too hungover to do such things because I'm a silly goose.
I think that was the reason why fucking Burt Reynolds didn't go, because he said he was. Yeah, he was struggling.
He was supposed to come with me, and then he was too down and was like, "No, I ain't going."
No fucking excuse, man, not to eat Robert Englund.
Man, I walked the whole way from the Lisburn Road, the whole way down to the Titanic Quarter, just to get that autograph and to meet Robert Englund, because I was not missing out.
Nah, well,
no, a hangover was not going to stop me. It didn't stop me getting a photo, but it didn't stop me actually meeting him and getting my autograph. So,
what a legend.
Because we love him.
We love him. He's the best. He's the best. He's one of the best horror icons, and he is fucking amazing to his fans. Yep. Not a bad word can be said about Robert Englund.
No.
However, he was not actually cast in the sequel. Did you know that? You did know that, of course you did. We talked about it briefly. We talked about it briefly on the first episode, which you can check out on our YouTube channel, and hit that bell and subscribe. But yes, they didn't even cast him whenever they were starting production on this sequel, because they didn't think that they needed him. How wrong were they? They ended up using a stuntman, and then they realized very, very quickly that this stuntman didn't have any acting chops at all, and they needed
the persona.
They needed to have
that persona. Robert
Englund in the role, and then they eventually gave him a call and went, "Here, Robert, we were wrong. Do you want to come in here and do this?" And he was like, "Fuck yeah!"
The nice man he is, he did it.
He did.
He's so goddamn nice.
Exactly. I hope to God that he asked for a little bit more money though, since he was shunned. I would like to think, so. But the sequel was written by David Chaskin, who I don't know who he is. I think this was one of his first scripts that he wrote or got made into a film anyway. But it was directed by Jack Shoulder, who had previously directed Alone in the Dark a couple of years before this film. And it's a film that it's got mixed reactions. Initially, it did quite well at the box office, but critically it was kind of panned as being not as scary as the first one and lacking the overall depth of character and stuff, which is very unfair, because I think it's a fantastic sequel, and it got panned as well because of the kind of homoerotic subtext that is very evident in the film, and I think that's unfair to, you know, say that film isn't good because of that. I think it actually, because of that extra subtext that's there, it makes the film even more interesting.
Yeah, 100%.
What's your thoughts on it, like in terms of like kind of when you first watched it?
I think I was quite late on to watching this one. I'm pretty sure I'd seen like Dream Warriors and New Nightmare and stuff before I actually went back to this one. And again, it's one of those ones that watching it now, it's cheesy as hell and the underlying context. But again, I kind of have a love for that because I love the kind of campy way of it, and I love the fact that they kind of change how Freddy works. Like he's no longer just like a dream demon. He's now become like it's almost like a commentary on like schizophrenia as well. There's kind of this different element of it where he is doing his work through somebody, you know, and then it kind of is like, well, where does Jesse begin and Freddy end, sort of thing, and as they kind of come together through the film. Yeah, and I love the like relationships and stuff in it. Like I feel like Jesse is a pretty good character. I think Jesse's pretty interesting. But again, I think a lot of the acting in this is pure hammed up. Like it's all pretty hammy the whole way through. But I think there's almost like a Burton-esque quality to this. Everything's very bright and everything's very hammy.
Yeah.
But you still kind of get those dark, gothic-y, you know, gritty moments, especially when they go to the like the factory,
the power plant later.
Yeah, the power plant later on. Like you get that kind of nice Darkman-esque sort of thing going on.
Oh, definitely.
Too, and I enjoy it. I think it's not the best, but it's not the worst.
Yeah, no, definitely not. It's unfairly, it gets kind of left at the bottom of the pile a lot of the times. Not at the very bottom, obviously, but you know, in the rankings of Elm Street, it tends to be close to the bottom, which I think is crazy. Like it's a very, very good sequel, and it's way better than some of the other sequels. So, you know, anybody that dislikes this movie, go and watch it again and watch it with, you know, through a new lens and just appreciate what it is. As you said, yes, the acting is a bit hammy, especially in the beginning, but I think as the film progresses, the acting gets really good. Like
the girl is girlfriend, not girlfriend, kind of is like she's probably, I would say, one of the strongest performances in the whole thing.
Well, she's Lisa, it's her name. She's played by Kim Myers. Yeah, she's very good. And she has her moments, as you know. Obviously, there's a few scenes as well. She has her moments. Jesse's played by Mark Patton, and then you have Grady played by Robert Russler, and obviously Robert Englund's back as Freddy. But I just think, like, as the movie progresses, when you get kind of halfway through, whenever Jesse, things start clicking in his head, what's happening, and him and Lisa become closer, and we'll talk about it later on. But as they become closer, I think their acting really picks up, and Jesse especially has some really good scenes in this. I think it's really very good quality acting, and kind of gets thrown under the rug a little bit in terms of the whole franchise.
Is it because he screams like a bitch?
He's a scream queen, of course he is. He is the final boy.
That scream, like
man.
When you first hear the scream in the scene where the family are sitting at the breakfast table, and you hear that scream, and you're like, who's that screaming? Is she all right? And then
I know.
He comes downstairs and you're like,
it's such a good scream. And there's a scream later on, which is even better. And like one of the second or third nightmare where he has later on, it's fucking brilliant. And like he definitely has a scream queen. He calls himself a scream queen. He has a documentary that was released 2019, I think it was.
Right.
It's about it's called Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's about him. He's the gay man in real life, and how it's about his struggles, about how he was suppressing his homosexuality during this film, and obviously what happened after it as well. But I haven't seen it. I really want to check it out. Yeah, it won loads of awards, and I can't wait to see it, to be honest with you. It won loads of awards, and everyone's saying it's a really good kind of look into him as a person, and this film and how it changed him, and it's a positive thing for gay men. So if you've seen it, please leave your comments. What did you think of that documentary? We'll hopefully be checking it out ourselves soon enough. But we'll get on with this sequel, Freddy's Revenge. The budget was about 3 million. It made 30 million, so very good take on the box office. Yeah, so Mark Patton stars as Jesse Walsh, who has moved into the Thompson residence, the former Thompson residence on Elm Street. The house has changed a little bit.
Yep.
You know,
the bars are still on the windows.
It's not quite. Yeah, well, it's not quite the same.
It's not.
Interior, but you can still see the stairs and the door and all that sort of, and the kitchen. You know, when they come in, it leads into the kitchen.
Yep.
So his family's moved into this house. They've got it cheap, obviously, which you find out later on. And basically, he starts to have these nightmares about Fred Krueger.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole basis of the story. Fred starts coming to him in his nightmares and then starts using him as a vessel, really, to kill everyone and on Elm Street, to continue his work. Yes.
To spread the fear to the children. Well, the teens, because that's the thing. Everyone, it's kind of the idea of when Freddy was alive was he killed children. For some reason, as a dream demon, he now kills teens.
He's kind
of moved on a bit. He's like, I'm done with the Waynes.
I know.
It's time to start attacking the teens. And you know, when he matures a bit more into like dream devilhood, he might then decide to start attacking adults.
Well, he kills adults as well.
He does. Yeah, that's true.
It's a myth that he just kills kids or teenagers. He kills plenty of adults, and there's one in particular gets lashed and slashed later on in this.
Slashed and splashed.
And splashed. Class. Very, very good. Lashed, slashed, and splashed. What a character the coach is.
That scene, I'd kind of forgotten about that when I went back to watch it. So when it happened again, I was just like, oh yeah,
that's how he goes.
But you're kind of like, in that moment, you're a bit like, is Freddy a bit of an anti-hero here? Because you can kind of see what the coach is leading up to. And Freddy kind of steps in and saves the day a bit.
It's an interesting subplot of the film. And it's interesting. We'll get to it. We'll get there definitely.
We'll put a pin in that.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in it for sure. There's definitely an anti-hero theme to Freddy. I think in the original script, there was even more of that for some reason, and that's one of the reasons why Wes Craven didn't want to direct it. He was offered the role by Bob Shaye and said, "Look, we've got this script. We want to do a sequel. Do you want to direct it?" And he refused because he didn't. First of all, he didn't want to do a sequel to it. And then he read the script, and I don't think the script did much for him. And one of the reasons was because he thought that Freddy was kind of the hero, which was a bit of a strange one. And initially, the Lisa character, wasn't in the script that much. And then he left a few notes saying, look, you need to bring her into the script a little bit more. And the writer, David Chaskin, gave her more scenes and made her a bit more important to the final script.
Yeah.
But it was very different. Apparently, the first pitch wasn't made by David Chaskin. It was made by a screenwriter called Leslie Bowen, who his pitch was that he wanted to make it a bit like Rosemary's Baby, which is interesting. He wanted that he wanted the pregnant mother. He wanted the mother in it to be pregnant, and he wanted Freddy to possess the fetus, which we get later on in Dreamchild. That guy actually wrote the script for Dreamchild. So it's interesting that his idea did eventually come to be on the screen, but it wasn't going to be for this one.
Yeah.
But they decided that was a bad idea because apparently one of the producers was pregnant at the time, and they just thought, no, this is going to be weird, having all the fetus weird Freddy stuff going on. And they decided to ditch it, so they went with your guy Chaskin's pitch instead.
Which, I mean, there's still that idea of not
possession,
but still like possession, and like when Freddy births himself from Jesse, we kind of still get a wee bit of that kind of notion, But yeah, Freddy Fetus will get there eventually when we get to the Dream Child.
I wonder if, obviously, the script for this, or the pitch for this, I suppose there wasn't a script written for this with that in mind, but the pitch, I wonder, was it identical to Dream Child, or did they change a lot of things for that? It would be interesting to see how they would have done it, you know, a couple of years earlier, rather than wait until to part 5. I talked about how obviously Robert Englund wasn't cast initially, and then they decided they had to bring him in because he's a brilliant actor. You can't have anyone else playing Freddy, especially in this one as well, because he becomes a lot more vocal in this one, and he does have a little bit more dialogue, but you see his face a lot more in this one than you did in the original.
Some real nice close-ups.
There's some beautiful. I mean, I think that this makeup in this one is way more terrifying than the first one. The first one was kind of pizza-esque, you know, big scars, and it was a wee bit lighter as well. And this one, they kind of go a wee bit darker, and it looks
deep burn.
It looks more realistic.
The detail in the hands is spectacular, because eventually we just sort of lose the glove in this one. We just have the claws coming out like Wolverine-esque, but out the fingertips. And just those details in the hands and stuff. It's the bit where Jesse's arm, all the skin starting to peel away, and it reveals the jumper and the hand and stuff, and you get to see that detail. Ooh. That's
an unreal scene as well. Like, but the face makeup in general is just a lot more darker. They decided to go with contact lenses with this in this one as well, which makes it more demonic, kind of yellow, like a red.
Yeah, the close up when he first kind of confronts Jesse in the dream. And he's like, "We've got work to do," and you've got that nice close up, and then he's, you know, he does the whole "you've the body, I've the brain," and peels that burn skin back to reveal his like pulsating brain. Ooh.
Class, man. Yep. So good. And his nose is a wee bit more kind of prominent, I suppose. It's like more hooked, and his eyebrows, I think, come down a little bit further. So I just think overall it's more terrifying. And that makeup was done by Kevin Yeager, who worked on Dream Warriors as well, I think. And I think he might have worked on the 4th one as well. But he went on to, I mean, he's done loads of stuff in the industry, and I think he's directed a few movies as well, one of the Hellraiser sequels, and a few other wee things. He's fucking brilliant. And Mark Shostrom as well, who also worked on Dream Warriors. He did a lot of the other effects in it. Yeager worked mostly on Freddy, and Shostrom worked on some of the other effects. So I think Mark Shostrom did the whole Freddy coming out of Jesse, like, which is unreal. What I've seen that is, that's crazy. It's really well done.
Man, the shot that gets me in that is when Jesse's screaming, but it's the close up of his mouth, and it's Freddy's eye inside his mouth. Man, I love that. I love that shot and all the red, like
so cool,
the red light in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of red light in this, and I just think it gets forgotten about.
Yeah,
you know, for the wrong reasons, and people don't appreciate some of the great cinematography and some of the shots, and some of the lighting in this is absolutely gorgeous, especially towards the end. As you say, at the power plant part, really cool shots. But there's a lot of red lighting in it. I like a bit of red
and green. You get some nice greens in there too. I think, especially in the power plant, there's some nice sort of grey. Again, I think it all goes to his like costume design.
Yeah.
Is you get those reds and greys, because even the very start, I was kind of wondering, the 2 girls that are on the bus with Jesse are wearing like a neon green top and a neon pink kind of well, it's pink, but it almost is red because it's that neon. And those 2, there's lots of that nice color use throughout the whole thing.
Obviously, that's the colors that they're playing with here, and it's reminiscent of his jumper, which is a lot more prominent as well in this film. Like the colors pop a bit more in this film, and at the end of the power plant, when Lisa goes back to help Jesse, there's loads of cool neon greens, and it's red, but it on the screen it looks like pink, and it's lovely, man. It's gorgeous.
It's so good, so good.
One of the other major differences with this film was that the soundtrack was done by Christopher Young, who would go on to do the Hellraiser soundtrack as well. He's very famous for that. But it's very different in terms of, it still has some of the little motifs there, but it's less synthy.
Yeah.
And it's more kind of orchestral, and it's very cinematic, I think. You know, it's I do love the music in the first film, but when you listen to the music in this one, it has kind of progressed a little bit, I feel.
Yeah,
and it's
there's the soundscape to this film I found very interesting. I kind of took more of a note this time watching it, that for some reason, especially in the scene when Freddy is rebirthed, and then the scene at the end, in the power plant, there appears to be like dolphins or whales. Like there's this kind of like whale noises going on over everything, and I'm kind of like, right, wait, like whale noises help you sleep? Are we supposed to be in a dreamscape right now, or are we just? Is it meant to be like screaming?
Just like animalistic, kind of like, maybe it's a whale giving birth or something. Because
maybe, I don't know, but I was.
I don't know.
I was like, what?
I didn't actually catch on to that.
I was just. It was especially those scenes where it's kind of going to be like high tension, like high drama. You know, Freddy's getting, it's like a real high moment for Freddy, and there just appears to be this like pod of whales somewhere in the background getting noise.
That is very interesting. I didn't catch it. Yeah,
go back and check it out.
I know that the sound design is fantastic in this. Like, and there's a lot of, obviously it's, you know, ADR or whatever, but there's a lot of like, they've made the voice a bit demonic during those scenes as well. But I didn't get the whales sound. But that is interesting. Yeah. The main thing about this film is, you know, let's be honest. A lot of people call it the gay one, because of the homoeroticism that's in it, or the subtext. None of that was, obviously it's subtext for a reason. None of it was planned. In the interviews with Jack Shoulder and the writer, you know, they say that it was just that was just how they wrote the script. That's just how they direct it. The lines of dialogue weren't planted for any reason other than they just fit at the time. It wasn't any sort of thing that they tried to, you know, sort of hidden meaning that they tried to put over in the film. But obviously, as it got analysed, you can really dig deep into it and realise that there is a lot of homoeroticism in this film and a lot of subtext.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can do that with almost any sort of, you can write your own meaning into any film, really.
You can, yeah.
But this one definitely, it's it's easy to do with this one.
Yeah, obviously there's some of the obvious stuff there with the coach, you know.
Yeah.
The coach is acted by an actor called Marshall Bell, who was a bit of a journeyman actor during the 80s and stuff, and he's been in some great films. I always remember him from Total Recall. And he's been in other things I can't really think off the top of my head, but he's always one of those kind of actors. He's just a horrible fucker. Like, he was in Stand By Me as well. I think he played the father, didn't he? He played a what's the wee kid LaChance called?
Oh,
is it Georgie or Geordie? I can't remember his name. My God, I can't remember his name. I'm pretty sure he's the father.
As soon as you say LaChance, the one who'd been to war.
Aye,
my dad stormed the beaches of Normandy.
No, that's the other kid. It's the writer kid. After his kid dies, the older brother dies, and the wee boy, and he thinks it's the wee boy's.
Yeah, he's just really like distant with them.
He's an absolute cunt, and he's a cunt in everything. He's just got that one of those. I don't know. Maybe he's a dick in real life. I don't know. And he's probably a lovely chap in real life.
Probably is a lovely person. He's just got that look.
I know.
Cast really does. So like, you know what you look like? You look like a very distant father and a bit of an asshole. Come on.
But a pretty small role in this, but you know, it's a very memorable role, and it's one of those things where people, whenever you mention this film, people just go, "Oh, the coach." You know, Coach Schneider is his name. But obviously, he, you know, has things about his character that they mention at the start of the film about how he goes to S&M clubs and stuff like that, and then you get that scene later on. So there's the obvious thing there with that. In general as well, I sort of find in cinema or in any sort of medium, a sports coach who is a bully, who specifically uses his power to make other dominant males look small in front of other people. There's something weird going on there behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is a bit of a trope for sport, coaches and sports mentors of some kind to have that in their DNA, which is kind of bizarre. But
except for Rocky's coach, we don't slander him.
I thought you were going to give me a fucking impression there. No,
I can't.
Nah.
I can't.
Danny,
I can't.
disappointing us all. Come on.
Sorry, I'll work on it for next time.
And then so you get obviously the thing with the teacher, the sort of gay connotations that the teacher has towards these two students, and then you get the gay bar scene, and the shower scene.
He's got a lovely leather vest number on, with all the studs.
I know, but then you get sort of the kind of more subtle things that happen in the film, which kind of for me are more important than those scenes. The things about Freddy being inside Jesse, that's possession obviously, but if you look a little bit deeper into it, you can kind of see a little bit of the subtext there as well. And there's lines of dialogue that Jesse says that is very kind of like, oh my god, that's like really homoerotic. There's a certain line where he says something like, somebody's trying to get inside of me. And then there's an even more obvious line about 10 or 15 minutes after that when he's speaking to Lisa, where he says, Freddy was inside me and he wants to take me again.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I can't believe he said that. Like I didn't catch that. I hadn't caught that line.
There's a lot of that, and there's obviously when Freddy is coming, he sort of very prominently declares Freddy's coming, he's coming. Which again, you don't have to read into that, but you know. And later on at the party, whenever things start getting hot and heavy between Jesse and Lisa,
Jesse, before they get to that stage, Jesse's like, "Oh, I'm not really into this," and he wants to leave, and then they kind of get a wee bit kind of horny, and then they start kissing, and he's groping their tits and all, and the tongue comes out and stuff, and then the first person he goes to after that is his mate. He runs to his mate's bedroom, so he leaves the girl, and he goes straight to the guy, and your guy Grady's like, "What are you doing in my room?" And he's like, "Oh, I need to stay here tonight." So there's that kind of subtext where if you really analyze it, he kind of runs away from Lisa and he goes to Grady, and there's a I suppose you said you could analyze anything to death, and you could say that about a lot of things, but it's a very interesting take on the film, and I think
it seems to be Freddy kind of steps in anytime there seems to be stuff going on between guys and girls in this movie. Obviously he steps in when he just trying to get on with Lisa with the big freaky tongue and stuff, but then the party, at the moment he shows up in the party is when all the guys and girls are hooking up. Like everyone around the pool has kind of hooked up, and that's when Freddy decides to do his big reveal to disturb them all. But again, that could also be read into the idea of, in a horror movie, premarital sex is bad and you're not to do it. Otherwise, bad men will come and they'll do bad things.
And they'll kill you or cut your dick off.
Or they'll turn the pool on fire and ruin all your hot dogs and burst all your beers.
I know. All those fucking beers just wasted, man.
Wasted beers, and burn a hole in your hedge. But not your fence.
No.
Your fence still survives.
No, your fence will be fine. The hedge, the fence is clearly made of like fucking titanium or something, or whatever, adamantium, whatever fucking Wolverine's made of. But yeah, the fence is fine, but the hedge is gone. So
exactly.
So yeah, it's an interesting take on the film, and obviously whenever I first saw it when I was a kid, I didn't take any of that in at all. For me, it was just another Freddy movie, and it wasn't until I kind of got a wee bit older that started reading, things about it and started to realize, actually, hang on, right enough, I did notice that and did notice that. There's a lot of people out there, especially male critics and male horror fans, that kind of shun this film because of that, and it's unfair, because I think it's a very interesting way to look at the film. But in terms of the possession, you sort of alluded to this at the start of the episode there, about where does Freddy, where does he start and Jesse end, and that kind of thing. That's the one thing that's obviously kind of doesn't really make sense in this film. If you're trying to break it down, and you're in a nutshell, this film is about Freddy possessing Jesse and using him as a vessel to kill people,
yeah,
a puppet as such. But it's hypocritical a lot of the time as well, and it contradicts itself at times as well, because sometimes people can see Freddy, as we've seen at the pool party. Because when I was watching it today, Janine actually was watching it in the background. She was busy doing stuff, but she kept coming in and seeing certain scenes. And during the rewatching, she was asking questions about it, and I was trying to explain it to her, you know. And the pool party especially, she was like, so are they seeing Jesse do this, or are they seeing Fred do this? And I was like, no, well, they're seeing Fred do it, because obviously, clearly, it's not Jesse doing it. But there's certain scenes where it's supposed to insinuate that Jesse is actually doing these horrible murders, because
Grady's
murder, and the coach as well. You know, whenever after the coach dies, Jesse's in the shower and he has the glove and he screams, and then he runs home. Well, the police take him home, but then later on at Grady's house, when he dies, he runs to Lisa and he's got blood all over his hands. And
now, is there anything really at the pool party? Because obviously we are kind of, as the viewer, viewing it from Jesse's perspective the whole way through the film. Bar maybe when Lisa goes to the power plant, we're kind of getting her take on it. But is there anything in the pool scene that definitely says that it's not, that they don't see it as Jesse? Because the way the boy kind of approaches him, like, there's nothing to say that that's not Jesse standing there with the glove on, but all the supernaturally stuff is a bit kind of...
well, I mean, he kills, like, loads of people. So you would kind of think that if this was happening, people would be like, Jesse, what are you doing? And also, Jesse's not physically a big person, and there was a lot of jocks at that party, so they could easily just jumped him and took him down. And, you know... I know obviously he's got the glove, so he's got 4 blades, if you look at it like that. But I don't think at any point in this movie Jesse actually committed any of the crimes.
No.
Because at the end of the movie, you're kind of thinking, right, if he did kill any of these people, if he killed the coach, if he killed Grady, if he killed
he's going to get arrested.
Any of these kids at the pool party, how can things just continue on? You know, at the end. And again, it's that whole nightmare versus reality. What is a nightmare and what's reality? And I think that was another negative thing that came out of this film, was that there was too much of the rules that were broken. You know, you sort of said that you enjoyed how Freddy came out of his shell a bit more and did things a bit differently in this movie than he did in the first one, where he was bound to their nightmares, and you only saw him in their nightmares until he was taken out at the very end. Whereas this one, he kind of just appears at the pool party. Loads of people see him. He appears a few other times, you know, and you're just kind of like, what is... You know, it doesn't really make sense in the context of the rules, but then it's a horror movie, and that's I think...
They write their own rules.
That is what the horror is that, you know, there is no rules really. Anything can happen.
I enjoyed the Freddy Now Comes in Flaming Hot edition, and that wherever he goes, it just seems to get like boiling hot.
I know.
Like, as one of the things in this movie is that he makes the room hot. Like, Jesse's bedroom starts to like melt, and the pool party, the pool's boiling, the fish tank that boils over, and
that's another kind of the whole sort of homosexual thing, is that Jesse's just constantly sweating. Like, his whole house he's constantly sweating, and obviously, yes, you know, they allude to the fact that the house is constantly hot, and
obviously we get the boiler scene and all. We get Freddy's claw down in the boiler, which that's where it was hidden, and you know, it's great. But yeah, hot and spicy Freddy.
I know,
this time around.
I like that. I think it adds to his lore, and it makes it a bit more where sort of that sort of thing where when Jesse turns the light on and the lampshade's melting, and then he looks over and he sees that the vinyl's like doing... It's like Salvatore Dali painting. Yep. It's just melting down like that there, and I think that's cool, man. It's cool imagery, and also it's good effects, but it's also that kind of thing where it's like it's letting the audience know that Freddy's about. You know, something bad is going to happen.
Yep.
But let's talk a little bit about some of our favourite scenes.
Yeah.
I think there's so many great scenes in this film.
There's some.
I love that opening shot where you get the road and then the bus comes around the corner. I fucking love the old school yellow school bus.
I love that shot. I hate the title card.
I like the Nightmare on Elm Street part. Yes. I hate the Freddy's Revenge part.
Revenge, in like that like
blue steel. It's like weird metal, yeah.
Yeah, it's very typical of its time, sort of, but
it just doesn't fit in at all.
So tacky. Yeah. So when that there came on screen yesterday, I was like, gross. Gross looking. Is that word art font that you get on like Microsoft Word?
Exactly. That's what they've just taken it from some basic word art type program. But I mean, I love the Nightmare where it's kind of like you can hear the scratching, you know, and then just the kind of typical normal font, and then the Freddy's Revenge came out, and you're just like, why did they make it like that? Like, it just it doesn't even fit in with anything. I suppose the only thing it could tie in with is the glove has got the steel parts on it and the wee rivets, so it kind of looks like it might be riveted together.
No, not even. It's just shit. It just looks shit.
Shit. Fucking change it.
Just looks shit. But no, and then it goes into that lovely kind of, as I said, I find the opening very Burton-esque, the way it's kind of like a lovely suburban street and the nice yellow bus, and the colours are all nice and bright, and then it goes out into a desert, and it's almost like sandwormy territory, and then the ground falls away, and then they're just balanced on this like pillar of stone, and you get all the red of like hell below them, and I love all that. I love
it's so good, man. It's first of all the bus. I love those yellow school buses. I love the aesthetic too. I just love it. It's class, and it's a throwback to the end of the first movie as well, because obviously that ends with them all getting into the car and then it being, you know, the Freddy car and it just driving off, and you don't know how that ends. We know that that's a nightmare and it's not a reality, but whenever this film starts, it starts in a vehicle and you think it's normal, and then obviously you find out it's Freddy driving. Well, Robert Englund driving the bus, which is the first time we see him as Robert Englund, and that's great. But yeah, such a good start. And Jesse obviously is kind of like, he's wearing eyeliner and stuff, and he's all like, ugh. It's like, he's not like that in the film at all after this. No. So it's a weird one. It's kind of like, why is he like that in his own nightmare? I suppose maybe that's how he thinks people see him. And then you get the two girls at the very end after everyone leaves, and they're looking around laughing at him and stuff, and then they go past and they drive into the desert, and oh man, you're right, it just turns from like this cool, really bright, colourful aesthetic, and then it turns into all dark and red, and you get the wee miniature bus and
the wee miniature bus teetering.
So good.
Color. Yeah, oh man, I love it. And as you said, well, I think just the kind of, so I'm trying to put it now into Freddy lore, trying to analyze how the Freddy lore works. So Jesse's just moved into town. He's obviously got this fear of being the new kid in town, new kid on the bus. So he obviously has imagined himself as this kind of loser new kid sitting at the back of that bus, all like, meh. So is that what invites? Obviously, he, one, is in the house that Freddy is most associated with, and two, is vulnerable in his sleep. Is that what invites Freddy into Jesse's life, into his dreams? Is that him having a vulnerable new school dream, the one that invites Freddy to come on?
Like, because he's so obviously vulnerable, low self-esteem about himself, blah 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 blah, that makes him vulnerable to Freddy coming into him, yeah. Because
he's having a nightmare anyway. He's having that new school day nightmare, new school nightmare. Freddy then becomes part of that because he sees, obviously from the dream realm, he sees, here's a way for me to get on in. And well,
it's interesting when you think about like what is the rules, what's the lore. Like, it's called A Nightmare on Elm Street, not A Nightmare at this house. Do you know what I mean? So obviously that's the Thompson house, and I suppose because Nancy was so instrumental in his demise in the first film, he feels like he has to go to that house first. So whoever's in that house is going to be like the first victim. And then hopefully after that, he'll go to other houses and stuff and do other things. But yeah, it's
interesting. House because that's the house he was sort of banished in.
Yeah. And because obviously Nancy's diary's there, and that's, you know, later on they find it, and that's how they sort of find all about the backstory. And I love that, man. I just think that's such a simple, like, but
should we become like Freddographers, Freddyographers, like, you know, those who specialize in the history of Frederick
Fredheads. I think
Fred
they call fans Fredheads.
Yeah. But yes, well, our favorite scene. So yeah, actually, this then leads on to the scene I like, which is the breakfast table. So Jesse lets out his big scream after waking up from the nightmare, and his sister's like, "Why can't Jesse just have dreams like the rest of us?"
Yeah.
And the mum's just like, "Oh, Jesse's just a little bit different, you know."
I know.
She's basically just like, he's a fucking loser.
He's a weirdo. He's a fucking weirdo. Like,
but
there's a lot of that going on in this film. It's like, oh my god, the guy had a nightmare. Oh wow. Or like, especially between Jesse and Lisa later on, when she's trying to find out what's going on, she's all like, "Oh, what's going on? Why won't you talk to me?" He's like, ugh. And he turns into a right bitch later on at the school dinner table when your guy Grady's like having a laugh with him, and he's like, "Oh." He pushes his dinner away and all. He's like, "No, I'm just gonna mope around like a wee bitch." But there's a lot of that in this film later on. And,
is Jesse the original emo?
He's got something emo about him. I mean, it's the 80s. It's, you know, the Cure were big, Echo and the Bunnymen were big, and, you know, all that stuff. The Smiths, you know, so.
Got a lot of those sort of band posters and stuff. And actually, all the bedrooms, all the teens' bedrooms, you're sort of seeing.
Yeah, there's a Stray Cats one in Grady's bedroom, which is very prominent. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So you get all that. We have that there, but it's the cereal that the sister's eating in that scene.
Aye.
That I love, the Fu Manchus cereal, which that there, like watching that again, seeing that cracked me up. But then, of course, it turns out that is actually like it's a prop that's used then, because she's trying to get the Fu Manchu fingers out of the cereal so that she can have them. But then the shot is her with these long claws on, which obviously Jesse's like when he sees claws. So he freaks out. But yeah, I really like that. I thought that was quite good and clever, and a great use of a prop, and also a nice callback to old school horror, because obviously Christopher Lee played Doctor Fu Manchu in the old Fu Manchu movies. Right, so I like that kind of little nod.
I love actually just going by the very first scene there after when the bus is out in the desert, and it's like just tipping, and the girls are like ooh screaming, and Jesse's like being really calm because he's clearly had these nightmares. You know, this isn't necessarily his first one. He's clearly had a few of them before, and he gets up and he sees Freddy come up from the driver's seat. Freddy's coming up, and then he just goes like that, and then it just smash cuts to the man cutting a tomato.
Aye,
and it's such a good cut.
See those cuts on those like close-ups where it's like violence against food. I love those. See the opening.
Edgar Wright, like he loves doing that.
He loves doing that, and then you've got the opening of the Dexter TV series, and it's him preparing his breakfast, but with the knives and all, and see stuff where like it's like close-ups of like food being
getting chopped up, so and the sound and all from
it's such a violent act, but when you pull the camera back, it's actually just somebody making the breakfast. I love that. I love that as a cinematic technique.
I know. So obviously you meet Lisa, who's not a girlfriend, she's just a friend, and then you
say he's just a friend?
I know. You meet Grady, who's like the jock type friend, and then you meet the coach Schneider, who's a bit of a and then you get the diary bit, which kind of explains, you know, yes, that reconfirms that this is Nancy Thompson's house, this is her old bedroom, this is 5 years after it's 5 years the diary's been there. That's after they leave, obviously after the mum kills herself, they say. And the girl went mad after seeing her boyfriend across the street being murdered.
Butchered, yeah.
Being butchered, yep. And then what happens? You meet Freddy for the second time in the nightmare where you see him in the basement. He does the whole, you've got the body.
Yeah.
I've got the brains, and he shows the brain.
And I know. Pulls it back. I love that. It's the kind of the way Freddy's he's coming round the boiler, but he's like using his left hand to kind of support himself, but his right hand is hidden the whole time. You never actually get to see his right hand without the glove on.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that there was really interesting because then obviously he's like telling Jesse, he's like, try it on. You know, he's trying to lure him in. He's trying to be kind of his friend. And then, you know, the glove ends up on the ground in front of him. And as Jesse runs upstairs, then that's when we get to see Freddy with the glove on properly. So we never actually get to see that right hand without the glove on until later on when the claws actually become a part of his hand. You know,
yeah, he doesn't wear the glove a lot in this Freddy, actually. It's mostly Jesse that wears the glove. And obviously that's, you know, was done for a reason. And it's a bit of a, you know, it's another hint at the subtext of the homoeroticism that Freddy's kind of trying to persuade Jesse to you know, put the glove on. You know, it won't be so bad. It's almost as if he's seducing him and saying, "Oh, it's okay. You know, just come on ahead with me. You'll be fine." You know, like somebody would, a predator would to, you know, a younger child or something. They're telling them it's not their fault. It's okay. Don't be ashamed about this. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Which again is interesting. I don't think there's anything sexual in Kruger's seduction. It's all about power. You know, it's all about that idea that he has control over somebody rather than it being sexual. But it's definitely
I think his whole kick is a power kick. You know, he has to have fear over people.
Exactly.
Because that is ultimately how he gets his power.
Yeah. That's how he gets defeated in the first one.
Exactly.
Whenever Nancy says, "I'm not afraid of you.
You have no power over me."
Yeah. And then they sort of, in a way, find that out and later on in this one as well. Whenever Lisa reads Nancy's diary later on, she says something like, Nancy says, "You have to fight him. You have to show him that you're not scared. So you have to fight back. That's the only way to get rid of him."
I think at the end of this one, though, it's more about like this one I found especially at the end in the power plant. It's not necessarily about conquering your fear of him. It was the power of love. I
know. It's a bit of it's not the best ending, let's be honest. It's very much, you can tell that they were just like, "Oh, how are we going to throw this ending together?" Yeah.
Make them kiss the girl.
Make them kiss each other, you know.
Kiss.
You know, it's true love's kiss, Danny. Solves everything, that is what it is, you know.
And turns Jesse into like a pupa man.
I know.
It's like a little pupa peeling his like hard skin off.
Coming out of his closet. Oh, is he
coming out of the closet though? Because he ends up with a woman. So
I know, but you know, it doesn't matter.
The end completely ruins the rest of what's been set up.
I know, but still, he's still coming out, and who knows what happens after that? You never find out really what happens after the movie finishes. But let's be honest, the best scene in this whole fucking movie is the montage scene where he has to tidy up his bedroom.
Of course.
So classic 80s campy montage when he's going to go out to see Lisa and his dad, who's a real dick as well. Yep. He's like, "Nah, go tidy your room, son." "Oh, Dad, nah, fuck off, go tidy your room." So he goes back to his bedroom and he's like, "How do you like that, Dad?"
Oh, he tips the Adidas box full of shite just into the drawers.
I asked you to tidy and you're tidying, so I don't know what that means.
But that's what I asked you.
And then for some reason he just starts dancing and wearing like really weird sunglasses and doing the old clicky and what is it he does with his? Obviously he does the whole. He hits the fucking drawer in with his arse, and then he does a weird thing with. What's it he does at the end of the scene? He pops. It's like
is it one of those things? It's like one of them, like it's like a rocket.
It's like a rocket thing, and he's holding it around his dick, and he's like he pops it just as Lisa comes in. Pops his cherry as Lisa comes in. Ooh.
I would say more blows as a rocket.
Blows as a rocket. That could be it, yeah. And then that's when they find the diary and all, and they get that whole background of Nancy, and he just tells her like it is. Like later on, he's just like, "I was me that killed Schneider." Like, and she's just like, "Oh no, it wasn't. It's okay." Instead of being like, "Hang on, this guy's a fucking nut job," because he's just moved in, so it's not like it's not like they're childhood friends.
No.
They kind of only met each other recently, and they haven't been friends for very long. I mean, Jesse's dad doesn't even know who. Yeah, he doesn't even know who Lisa is. So it's not as if they've been friends for a long time. So it's kind of weird that she just kind of accepts all this as if it's normal. And also the weird thing about
seems to be on Elm Street though.
I was going to say the weird thing about these fucking Elm Street movies is that the whole town seems to just forget what is going on. Yeah. If you're outside of Elm Street, oh, it's fine. You know, it's kind of like, no, this guy was obviously, you know, historic for killing children, and then there was teenagers that were murdered, you know, many years later, and now it's happening again, and people kind of just seem to throw it under the rug as if it's nothing.
The coach was killed by multiple slash wounds. That doesn't sound familiar at all.
Exactly. He had 4 razor blade slash wounds in his back. That's never happened in Springwood before. Who could that be?
I wonder.
I know, but then it's that kind of thing where small town suburbia, do they just hide it under the rug because they don't want
brush away into the furnace.
Exactly, and they just it was what we talked about, like shared psychosis type.
Yeah.
That whole thing where it's like, they imagined it. Nothing's going on. It's fine.
The whole town just imagine the whole thing. It's fine. Forget about it.
Exactly. Fake news, Danny. Fake news.
Fake news.
So, and then we also, obviously, Freddy's like, kill for me. You know, he wants Jesse to be his puppet to kill for him because he isn't strong enough to do it, which is weird because he's
still kind of recuperating his strength.
Yeah, but they never really fully explain that. They kind of just kill for me, but then he goes and kills people himself, so it's kind of weird. But yeah, the whole idea is that he doesn't have the strength.
Still kind of lends the idea that, you know, is it Jesse doing it? Is it Freddy doing it? You know, like kind of.
Yeah.
But again, as we said, we can't really be too sure. I think maybe the coach and Grady. I feel Jesse might have been involved with those ones because he ends up soaked in blood.
But how do you? So let's just talk about the scene with Grady. Maybe not so much with Schneider. The scene with Grady, though. How do you explain the fact that Freddy comes out of Jesse's body? Is that Grady having a nightmare? Is that Grady's nightmare?
Could be Grady's nightmare, and then in reality, Jesse's just
sleeping.
Is sleepwalking within
the
nightmare. So he is puppeted. In reality, he's being puppeted to do what Freddy's doing in Grady's dream. Mm-hmm. So then when Jesse snaps out of it, he then looks at the mirror and sees Freddy, but then looks at himself to see all the blood.
Yeah.
So that's
so
a way to look at it.
Whenever after Freddy possesses Jesse, Jesse sees Freddy, but not in his nightmares. So Jesse doesn't have to have a nightmare to see Freddy. However, any other time that anyone else sees him, they're having a nightmare. So it works for Grady, but it doesn't really work for Schneider. So if you go back to Schneider's scene, where it's supposed to look like it's a nightmare, when Jesse gets up and walks through the rain and goes to this, you know, gay bar. Because, like, why is he going there? Like, how does he know where it's at? He just walks there in the middle of the night when it's raining. He meets the coach, obviously, and the coach just comes over and sort of goes, "I'm taking you home with me. You've been bad boy. I'm going to make you do laps to the fucking basketball court." And you're just like, what? Surely this is a nightmare. Yeah. Also, Bob Shaye's the barman as well. The producer of the owner of New Line was Bob Shaye. He appears in the first film as well, and he appears this as the gay barman with the big mad fucking cuffs with the spikes coming out of it on his forearms. So he makes him run around the basketball court, right? So you're still thinking, wait, hang on. I thought it was a nightmare, so this isn't a nightmare. So they're now at the school. Schneider tells him to hit the showers or whatever. And then Schneider gets attacked by all the balls start attacking him, really, and the tennis balls.
The tennis balls firing out.
I know, the basketballs, and then eventually it's a skipping rope that comes and drags him away. Yeah. But Jesse's in the shower looking at him, and he sees him being dragged, and then he sees him being hung up. Yep. And then that's when he gets debagged, and he gets.
It's the way the clothes just get like whipped off. It's just like.
And he gets a towel that's like, that's how you used to do at school.
He like scalps his arse.
I don't know. He just lashes his arse, and then he slashes him.
And then he
gets splashed.
and he gets slashed. What was it? Lashed, splashed, lashed, slashed, and splashed.
Lashed, slashed, splashed. That's going to be a soundbite from this episode. Yes. There you go.
But it's the bit because the thing with this, I feel like the skipping rope's really important in that scene, obviously, because it's when you see Schneider in his office, he is picking up. He makes a real thing of picking up the skipping rope and setting it on his desk, and you're kind of like, right, what's he planning to do with that? You know, there's something kind of dodge going on there.
So what's the explanation behind that scene, though?
I feel it's punishment. I feel Freddy's trying to protect Jesse because Jesse is his vessel.
His bitch.
His little bitch.
Little bitch. So how do you explain it? Is it so it's not a nightmare?
It's not a nightmare, but I feel like
you can't explain it, Danny.
Magic.
It doesn't make sense. Aliens. There's a lot of scenes that don't really make sense because they break the rules, but fuck it, I don't care. Schneider,
it's a very impactful scene. Yeah, it definitely is one of those scenes. It's a very kind of memorable death from the franchise.
Mm-hmm. You know. And then you get the scene after that when he gets taken home to his dad, and his dad's like, "I've only got one question to ask you. Where are you getting your drugs from?"
No, I've got two.
What are you on?
He goes, I have two questions to ask you, son, and then we can go to bed. What are you taking? And who's giving it to you? He's just like, I'm not on drugs, Dad.
Again, he didn't mention drugs.
No.
The dad didn't say anything about drugs. He could have been taking anything, and he could have been getting it from anyone.
Yep.
So the dad knew. The dad knew there was something going on. Because
what you been getting? Son?
What have you been getting, and who's giving it to you? So there, I'll say no more about that.
Oh, matron.
But then also it cuts to then the school where Jesse and Lisa go back to school, and then they find out that Schneider is actually dead. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a nightmare; it was something really happened.
Yeah. And
then that really kind of everything starts clicking in Jesse's mind. Then after that, and obviously he tells Lisa about everything that's been going on, and then that's kind of really the kind of halfway point of the film, I think, where you're heading towards the end of the film and the kind of the climax of what the hell is going on here, and is Jesse really doing these murders, or is he just Freddy's puppet? Is he just going to be a scapegoat for Freddy? It's interesting, but it's just a lot of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think the one thing that definitely makes sense and is sort of a staple to all the Freddy movies is we get the little girl. The scariest thing about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies is when either a group of or a little girl sing the nursery rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
And we get this one. It's his sister's bedroom. And is it meant to be his sister?
I think it's his little sister, yeah.
Is she skipping in the middle of the room surrounded by all her toys, singing the nursery rhyme? And then that's when you find out he's actually standing over her bed and is about to kill her.
Yeah.
And kind of snaps out of it. You know,
well, those scenes, they're different scenes. They're actually different scenes, yeah. There's a scene earlier where you see her and skipping rope and he looks in, and then later on there's like a weird POV scene that you don't normally see from a Freddy movie. Yep. But it's like Evil Dead almost. The camera's, going like this, and then you hear Freddy say "Hello, little girl" or something similar, and then it cuts back and it's Jesse hovering over his little sister's bed. She's like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. And then
that's I think when Jesse really starts to kind of freak out, isn't it? Is when he's like, "I almost killed my sister." But anything to do with the little girls in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I'm immediately like, nope. Creepy children.
Creepy children. Skipping rope as well.
Yeah.
That's the skipping rope tie-in as well. So
can't be coping when it comes to scary children.
Skipping rope must be like the dream demon's weapon.
Skipping rope.
I know, because obviously the wee girls in the dream they use it as kind of the nursery rhyme. Although that's supposed to protect people technically, but are they like a decoy? Mm-hmm. Are they really working for Freddy? Who knows? And then that's whenever next is basically the whole pool party kind of scene where you get all the mad shit that happens at the pool party, and you get the start of the pool party, and then Jesse leaves, goes to Grady's house. You get the whole weird transformation scene, which is fucking phenomenal. Like I just think that's overlooked, man, in terms of like horror in general.
Practical effects, yeah.
What a scene that is! Jesse's lying against the wall, and that's great. That's great acting, man. See your guy Robert Russler. I think he's really good in these scenes. The guy that plays Grady, because he's a bit of a jock early on in the film, and then you kind of realize, oh, he's not actually that bad. He's
they kind of become mate. It's the bit where they're doing the push-ups at the start of the movie. And Jesse's kind of like, "What's your deal with me, man?" And he's like, "Nothing.
I have no deal.
I have no deal." Just
and then he asks him, oh, where do you live? He asks him because obviously he's new to town, and you kind of get this vibe that they're common friends, and it turns out he's not that bad a guy. And then in that scene, like, that's good acting. And then obviously Mark Patton, fantastic acting from Mark Patton as well. Whenever he starts kind of realizing that he can't control it, and he's like, just stay awake, man, watch me. If I flinch at all, wake me up. I don't care what you need to do, just wake me up. And he says, whatever you do, don't fall asleep, because obviously you have to get that in to a Freddy movie at some point. And then as soon as he sort of starts drifting off, that's when Grady's like, sweet dreams, mate. But is Grady already sleeping at that point? And is he having a nightmare? And then he sees his nightmare is, as we discussed, is Jesse transforming into Freddy. But that scene is the blades come out of his finger, really gruesome.
It's the way the skin's almost like twisting and splitting, but you're getting this like
you see the jumper,
like yellow ooze.
Yeah,
is coming
but
out.
You see the red and the green of the jumper in his forearm, and his skin's tearing apart. And then obviously he falls against the wall, and you get the eye through the mouth, and it's Jesse screaming.
And then Freddy's face coming out of the chest, and it's like pushing against, and you kind of get like the outlines, the nose and the brow and all, and then the hand obviously comes across and like slashes the chest for Freddy to then burst through, and it's
class. It really stands up to today's standards. I think if you saw that in a movie today, you'd be like, oh, that's class. Yeah, like it's so good. And this was 1985. Crazy, man.
So you can't beat practical effects.
Yeah.
You just can't.
And then obviously Freddy comes out and he stands up tall, and he kills Grady. And you get that real panic because Grady's grabbing the door. That's great acting. He's grabbing the door and he's banging. He's dad, let me out. And then Dad's like, open this door, and And
you get he's chokes Grady up and lifts him up. And then the shot is from outside the bedroom then with the knives come through the door and he drags them down.
I know. Awesome. And then it cuts back to Jesse, and Jesse's covered in blood, and then he fucks off. And that's when he goes back to Lisa's house.
The police have just like appeared, and you think, right, the police have just arrived at this property where someone's obviously been murdered. You'd think they would have kind of scouted around the house to make look out for people jumping out the window, but no.
I know. I mean, I suppose you kind of just have to assume that they were maybe phoned by a neighbour. Oh, there was a white lot of noise coming from that house. Okay, we'll drive over. And they didn't think, to go around the back. But Jesse just fucks off out the back window. He heads back to the party to speak to Lisa, and then we get Freddy at the pool party and all that stuff happening. And that's when Lisa says to him that you have to fight Freddy. You can't keep going on like this. You have to fight back. And we get actually a wee bit of scrap between Freddy and Lisa.
He bites her leg.
He bites her leg and it becomes infected. And then he's sort of... I mean, Freddy's never been great in fights. He's pretty shit. Like, he can kill you like that, but when it comes to physicality, he normally loses. And he's fighting a girl here, and he's trying to fight her.
He's got to be arm's length from him to do anything decent otherwise. But if you get a grapple with him,
there's a really sort of pathetic bit in this where Lisa runs away and she turns around and she goes to throw a bit of material. It's like a curtain. She just throws it, and it's like, what the fuck's a curtain going to do to Freddy Krueger? And then she starts throwing stuff to him, and it's just awful.
It's the bit though, I think, where Freddy's they've just got up from when he's bit her on the leg, and he just kind of is standing looking at her, and then he just fucks all the plates off her shelf. He's just like,
fuck sick, bitch.
Fuck your plates.
I know. Just really angry.
Instead of going after her, you just fuck her plates on the ground.
How does he do it? He loves doing that. He loves clearing a table, just the plates, or why would you do that, man?
Dramatic effect. For dramatic effect. We know he loves the dramatic flourish.
He does.
These dramatic flourishes. So where do you go from here? From the part, yes.
So he could have killed Lisa basically, and that's a very important scene in the film because he basically he doesn't save her, but he decides not to kill her because it's letting us know that Jesse is a part of Freddy now, and he still has a human aspect inside of Freddy. So Freddy decides, no, I can't kill Lisa. Like, I love her. And then he fucks off out the window, or he fucks off out the door, and then that's when he walks through. And there's a great scene, and I love this scene. Everyone's standing looking. They're like, oh, what's going to happen here? And then the dad comes out with the shotgun, and he misses, and Freddy's just standing there, and you get that cool silhouette. And then he walks away, but he's still looking at the dad.
Yep, it's the cool silhouette, and the fire bursts behind him, and he's like, "You're all my children." And see that, I'm just like, "Fuck! What a fucking like that is Freddy right there. Like that's everything you want Freddy to be. It's just this like menacing, fire-lit, demonic character who is just like all powerful and here for your fear. You know?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's a class scene, and then when he walks away, he kind of walks away like this, and you see him before he turns. He's still looking at the dad, and then he eventually just turns away, and he walks through the crowd, and that's when he decides to burn the hedge, but not burn the fence. Exactly. And then he just disappears into.
He loves a good crosshatch fence.
I know.
Man of taste.
He loves a good exit as well, off stage. You
dramatic flourishes.
He's a thespian at heart. So so the whole thing from that is the fact that he doesn't kill Lisa. He kills loads of people out the bull. Like he just slashed about 10 people.
It's when your boy's kind of walking up to him like, "Are you gonna help me, man?
Hey man, it's cool, and he's like, "Help yourself, fucker," or something like that. Yeah. And then it's great. It was a great bit as well in that scene where people are trying to get away. They're trying to climb up the fence, and there's a guy at the bottom, and they're just trampling on him, and they kill him. They end up killing him because he just stands on his head and blood spurting out of his fucking lips. It's class. But then what happens then? They go back to the power plant.
Yes, Lisa's kind of twigs on. She's like, this is where I need to go. And actually,
of course
this is the scariest part in the film. Like, yeah, I know that the little girls freaked me out, but the fucking Rottweilers.
The Rottweilers with the baby faces or something.
The pussy baby faces. Man, that's still every time that scene, because I don't like watch this movie all the time, but when I do watch it, I kind of have forgotten about them. So when they come on again, I'm like, oh,
I know.
My heart.
It's so random because
it's so, like out of nowhere.
I suppose it's supposed to be like the Hounds of Hell. I think is the kind of the thing about it. But it feels like it was just thrown in there because they were like, oh, we've got a couple of extra grand here for special effects.
Giant baby heads.
I know. What will we do?
Dogs.
What else can we do for to make this to make the special effects and to sort of make them more memorable? Let's just throw in a couple of Rottweilers with baby faces.
Yeah.
So random, and she just kind of walks past them. But it's also it sets up the whole sequence because there's certain things that happen in this sequence of scenes that I think is really clever because it makes there's moments where she thinks she's fallen, and then it pans back and you realize that she's not fallen. She's just holding onto the bar, and so she's hallucinating that she's fallen down these steps or whatever. And then there's a moment where she thinks that her leg's infected, and she's like trying to clean all the dirt and all the maggots, and then she looks down again and the wrapping is still on her legs, so she's hallucinating all this. And there's also there's like a demon rat as well.
I was going to say the bit that gets me is the cat and the rat, and it's because when it's like the wide shot, you can see it's clearly like either a real rat or a toy rat, and then a real cat. But then the close-ups are of their like mouths, and they have like these horrible like sickle like teeth.
Yeah.
And they're dripping and gooey and stuff. And you're just like, what the fuck? But they are very obviously fake. So when kind of cut alongside the clip of the real cat, you're a bit like, that's a bit looking. But still,
I think the special effects guys, Mark Shostrom, probably just had a couple of props sitting in their trailers and a wee bit of extra goo, and they were like, here, we'll put a wee bit of goo on this fake cat that I used in another film, and we'll throw it in here at the end just to make it all freaky. We'll work it in somehow. But it's like, here, it doesn't take away anything from the film. It's cool little scene.
Exactly.
But I love that whole just that whole set, the whole power plant set, I love that, man. And as we said a wee bit at the start of this episode, loads of cool neon greens, and neon kind of red pinks. Now it's pretty subtle. It's not like in your face, but it's in the background there when she's running around the steps and running around certain parts of the power plant. You see it in the background, and it's lovely looking.
Oh yes,
really well lit. And then you get that part where she's sort of running away and Freddy's coming after her, and then she's obviously like, no, Jesse, I know you're still in there. And he's like, fuck, Jesse's gone, and blah, blah, blah. And then she decides to kiss him.
She plants the lips right
and then that's when you get the part where she's like, ooh, I love you, Lisa.
No.
And then, as powerful as Freddy is, he can basically do anything, but he's never had the power to love.
He's not got the
so
power
it's almost like the power of love. Love's true kiss, has defeated this horrible dream demon, and then he falls down, and then his whole body
he bursts into flames.
He burns, yeah.
He bursts into flames, and then from the ashes rises Jesse,
the Phoenix. Jesse or the Phoenix, yeah. Jesse rises, and then it's all great, and then obviously the very last scene, which is has become a staple of the franchise, is the sting, and everything's great, and nobody remembers all those deaths that Jesse was involved with. What's that? You were at the coaches, you were at the school the night the coach died. No, it's fine.
What you talking about?
Your best mate died, but no, it's fine. It's all over. There's no big deal.
To be at his house, no.
I know. All those people that died at the pool party, that's fine. Let's forget about all that.
Lisa's still not going to rat you out, is she? No?
I know. We get this weird thing where the mom's like, oh, it's good to have you back, Jesse. What, is this just the day after this has all happened? Yeah. Have you not had any interaction with your son since this has happened, or this is very weird?
Even like him. She thinks at the start he's a loser. So.
And then he runs away and he does like a weird, you, I'm going back to school. Happy days.
We completely skipped one of the maddest scenes in the movie.
Oh, fuck.
The fucking budgie.
The parakeet, aye.
Parakeet that kills his wee parakeet mate and then attacks everybody in the room. Ends up because the dad not end up getting
he gets his cheek gets fucking ripped open with the wee claw. But that's a weird one because I don't mind that scene, but apparently that was one of the scenes that Wes Craven really hated, and he didn't want. That was one of the reasons. Another reason why he didn't want it.
It doesn't seem to make much sense to the rest of the Has Freddy possessed the parakeet, or what is?
Initially, I was reading a little bit about it. Apparently, the parakeet was supposed to look like Freddy. Like there was going to be close-ups.
It's going to be like what, red and yellow,
like Freddy face on the parakeet. I don't know. Maybe a bit like how the Rottweilers looked at the end
with a beak.
I don't really know. It doesn't make sense. You're right. I mean, it's supposed to just be like, oh, it's weird things happening because obviously the house is warm, and then there's a moment where like the toaster blows up, but it's not plugged in. That's strange. It's not even plugged in. So there's weird stuff happening in the house. So I guess it's just another thing that happens in the house.
Another weird thing. The parakeet,
it's
crazed parakeet.
It just felt like there is a lot of random shit that happens in this movie that doesn't really tie in to the general lore of Freddy, but the franchise gets even more bizarre. So a wee mad parakeet's not the worst thing.
But it does end in a traditional fashion.
Classic.
You do get that classic end. So obviously it comes full circle and ends on a school bus.
Yeah. Yo, I'm going back on the bus.
We're going back to school, boys.
Can't wait.
I love school.
Bring on the books.
I might have murdered one of my teachers, but hey ho.
10 mates died at a pool party, but we're back to school.
But it's sweet. Who cares? Who cares?
Oh.
What happens in Elm Street stays in Elm Street. So yeah, he's back on the bus and it starts to speed away, but it starts to go a bit too fast. Ooh. But then it turns out that that's actually okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually fine.
They're all like, no, Jesse, it's all right. He's like, no, driver, stop. And then the driver's like, what? You mad cunt. He pulls over, he picks a couple of kids up.
Mm-hmm.
And then her friend, Carrie, I think her name is, it's like, Jesse, everything's going to be okay. It's all over. And then all of a sudden,
Freddy's hand comes bursting through her chest.
I know. And something's going to happen because she was like this, and then suddenly she cuts back and she's like this. She's up a bit farther. You know, obviously exposing her kind of chest area a wee bit more, and then the big claw comes out.
As your top says, bra.
Bra, I know.
Her bra area.
Oh, bra.
Bra.
So his arm comes out, and then that's it. It cuts to the credits. So great ending. I love a good old cheesy sting in a horror film, like.
Of course.
You know, it's interesting. We don't know anything more about these characters in any future films. Obviously, we get to find out a little bit more about Nancy Thompson in the third one as well, and I love that they reference her character quite a bit in this film, and about what happened after the first film and between the first and the third film. You know, people thought she was mad because her boyfriend got murdered, so it kind of does play into the fact that maybe they did not really report, you know, the weird murders that were happening. It was all just a kind of serial killer, and they were brushing a lot of this under the rug and hoping people would forget about it. So but I have a good take on a new Elm Street film, actually. I've been working on. I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell you secretly. But yeah, that kind of plays into, you know, the whole small town brushing everything under the rug. Kind of plays into my take on a new version of Elm Street. But which we hopefully will get. I feel like there's definitely going to be another Nightmare on Elm Street film. Not a remake, it'll be a sequel. And I really feel like there's potential there. So that'd be cool. But yeah, so Freddy's Revenge, there you go. Definitely, I think one of the better sequels. I know it doesn't get a lot of love, but I feel like if people give it a bit more time and, you know, watched it for what it was and really appreciated some of the beautiful lighting in it and the great shots, and yes, there's some of the subtext in it that maybe some folk don't appreciate, but, you know, fuck you if you don't appreciate some of that stuff. That's your fault. Very, very worthy sequel in my eyes. Oh yeah. So that's all we have time for this week. Hopefully you can join us next week. Leave your comments, as always, in the comment section. You know, let us know your thoughts on this film. Where does it rank in the rankings of Elm Street? I will try and have a definite ranking for the next time when we do Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Spoiler! Don't be telling people what we're doing. When the time comes, we will definitely be doing Dream Warriors. 100%. Have to. Next season. Yes, we definitely will do it next season. I feel like we probably will be doing every Elm Street film, except for the remake. But you know what I mean. I mean, we've already referenced the remake. That was enough. That was enough airtime for that. That's enough. That's enough time. Right. Anyway, we have been talking for a lot longer than I thought we would about the gay one of the Elm Street franchise. So please subscribe, as always. You know, subscribe to our channel. If you enjoy our videos, share them with your friends. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at The Fright Club NI. Check out the website, www.thefrightclubni.com, and hit that bell. Hit that subscribe. Hit that subscribe. Give us a like. Give us a like, Shim. No, seriously. Thanks for your support. We appreciate all the support that we're getting. We don't make any money at this. We're doing this for a bit of crack, and we appreciate everyone that's, you know, has been giving us feedback and, you know, sharing on their social media and all that sort of stuff. So much love from me and the Danny. And we will see you next week for another episode of Monday Night Frights. Until then, stay safe, take care. All the best, guys. Bye.